This has been the craziest, most insane political season I have ever lived through, and it can only get even more convoluted and explosive. Do
I
you agree?
agree, and yeah, and something that I've heard kind of through the grapevine is that the Republicans, of course, want to make hay out of this,
Yeah.
but they don't want to do that too soon because they might end up making such a big deal out of it that Clinton is forced to drop out.
Hmm.
And their best shot against for winning the presidency would be Clinton because she has negatives that are so high. I mean, her and Trump are the only two people in the you were reading that thing I wrote earlier in the last 40 or so years to have negatives that high. It's crazy.
Hmm.
So of course they would want uh, Clinton as opposed to Biden or Sanders or someone else to run against. So they don't want to make too much out of this too soon. So I think they're laying in wait until the convention is over. And then we're going to hear more stories about the Clinton Foundation. We're going to hear more stories about the email scandal and so on. And I'm sure Trump will go out every day. He's already started calling her crooked Hillary, and this
Hmm.
will be like, vote for me because I am not committing crimes the way Hillary Clinton did, at least,
Right.
and so that worries me because frankly I think Trump would be a terrible president. I don't want to be seeing him as a president either. So I'm just praying, that with all my might that something will happen to stop this from being a Clinton versus Trump election because that's
Hmm.
just a no-win nightmare.
It really is. And I think that's borne out by poll after poll that either it shows Trump and Clinton neck and neck or Trump ahead within the margin of error. But when you compare Trump or put Trump up against Sanders, it's a whole different story. Sanders beats him. But at the same time, the Democratic Party establishment is treating Sanders like the crazy uncle in the attic, and throwing all of their pressure, all their weight, everything behind Hillary Clinton. The Democratic Party is taking a hell of a risk with this.
Right, right. Well, I heard from, I believe it was one of the people on the Young Turks who said recently they went to the that big dinner in Washington hosted by
Hmm.
Larry Wilmore recently, and we're talking to all the insiders, and the insiders in the Democratic Party were saying that if Clinton is knocked out because of this scandal, then the plan B would be to move to Joe Biden
Hmm.
and to have her delegates, because her delegates would be freed up if she were to drop out, and they could vote for anybody they wanted. And so if they all were in lockstep voting for Biden, then they could swipe the swipe the nomination away from Sanders.
Well,
So I
how
think that
could?
would be
But how
that would be
could?
terrible, but even that scenario I think would be preferable to having Clinton as president because we can see what's going to happen with the Clinton Foundation
Hmm.
and with her buffet. The past tells you what the future is going to be,
Right.
and I do not want to see that happen.
How though could all the delegates that are now committed to Sanders be taken away with a Biden candidacy?
Well, the Sanders delegates would still vote for Sanders, but if, let's say, Clinton has slightly more, and then she has some big chunk of the super delegates, right, and then all her delegates vote for Joe Biden, like I said, if they're all united, they're
Hmm.
free to vote their own choice. I would think that at least some of them in that scenario would say, look, we have to give it to Sanders because he actually ran in all the primaries and
Right.
did pretty well. But we don't know. If they were to all vote in lockstep, then there probably would be more of those delegates, and they would outnumber the Sanders ones slightly and steal away the nomination.
Boy, what a rat's nest, Paul.
But my hope in putting this timeline together is to try to kind of foil the Republicans by bringing this to a boil
Quicker.
before the
Right. Right.
convention. It's got
Hmm.
to. Hopefully, I hope and pray that the FBI is really going to get this done one way or another with their recommendations, like the news reports are saying, in the next month, and then we can find out and get this done and in a way so that we still have other options, and go into that convention, and if Hillary is tanking in the polls, if people are, realize that this is a big scandal and you shouldn't be nominating somebody who's potentially under indictment, that there's still time to make a change. That's what I'm pinning my hopes on.
Well, I have to say that the bit of what you have put together with the timeline that I've scanned, and I want the people listening to this tonight to understand that in my taking a look at it, I don't see any agenda on your part whatsoever, other than to get out the facts, to lay it out, and people can make their own decision. There doesn't seem to be any kind of it's obvious, I think, that what you put together is strictly that. It's an objective look without the political overtones or undertones that is just so corrupting of the whole primary season right now, all this garbage that's going on. And I sure hope that people will take a look at this. It takes time. You got to, like I said earlier, you have to sit down, block out some time, and go through what you've put together. But it's fascinating. I on the one hand, it's fascinating. On the other hand, it's terrifying. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And another thing to keep in mind is that I think, kind of regardless of what comes out of this convention and regardless of what comes out of the general election, even, this story is going to keep going.
It will, yeah.
If Clinton were to win the presidency, that day one the Republicans would start impeachment proceedings based on this stuff that's come out already, and so they'll push it hard, and they control the House and maybe the Senate, so they could have hearings on this from now till doomsday. And then if the Republicans were to win, then what they would do is they would go after Clinton anyway, because they've been gunning for Clinton for ever since, the Clintons have been in politics. They hate the Clintons with a passion. And so they would appoint an attorney general and put people in office that would be sure to launch investigations into this sort of thing. So we're going to be hearing a lot about this no matter what. Hillary Clinton is damaged about this, in my opinion, no matter what. Even if the FBI were to say, there's nothing here, we know there's something there. Because there's been literally thousands of news stories that have come out about this. And, it's not just a big nothing. We can see that there's a lot that was done wrong. So there will be a price to pay for this eventually. Right now, Hillary Clinton, I think, is riding high, but I think that she is eventually going to be hit pretty hard.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul. To wrap this up, I hope you'll stay in touch with us, especially when, if and when, the results of the FBI year-long investigation is made public. At least how the FBI or the Justice Department is going to react to the results of the investigation. I hope you can come on the program and we can talk about this again.
Well, I'd be delighted. Yeah, thanks.
It's incredible. I think the work you've done is just mind-boggling. You certainly put a lot of time into it, and I hope people will take a look at it. I just hope people will take up the offer to look at what you've put together and come to their own conclusion. I hope.
Yeah, that's my hope too. I feel like there has been so much spin and misinformation out of this because, Clinton keeps saying these things in public. Like recently, she kind of got dinged because she kept calling it a security inquiry.
Right.
And the FBI director said, no, this is actually an investigation. But the media has, although they've been reporting this and that, they haven't really pushed back on the whole narrative and made people really sit up and say, wow, this is something for real that we really need to look closely into. And that's exactly what we need to do.
I think so. Anyone ever tell you that you sound a little bit like Bob Woodward?
No one has ever said that.
I'm just saying. Not your investigative work or your journalism, but your voice. You sound like.
No one has ever said that.
A couple of times tonight, I thought, oh my God, I'm talking about Woodward. All right. Well, listen, Paul, this has been fascinating, and I hope we can get together again on the air and as this thing works to some sort of either conclusion or non-conclusion, one way or the other, it's going to work to some endpoint. So I'll ask Kathy to stay in touch with you, and if you can stay in touch with us, we will we'll make a date for a subsequent program.
Well, certainly, and again, thanks for not only having me on, but going so in depth on this issue.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the work you've done, and I'm like I say, I'm fascinated by it. And at some point in the immediate future, I'm going to sit down. I mean, this week, well, next week, and go over what you've put together. It just, from my skimming, it looks fascinating. Anyway, thanks, Paul. I appreciate you coming on the program, and oh, listen, watch your back. You know, be careful. You don't want to wind up living in the Ecuadorian embassy someplace, or in Moscow. So, take it easy, okay?
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot.
All right, Paul. Take care. We'll talk again. Thank you.